welcome back to my channel. It's been a very long time. Don't worry, I'm not dead. I just had a couple of other things going on. That being said, I am now back and working on projects. And this particular project is something I've wanted to undertake for a very long time. Since a young age, I've wanted to make musical instruments. The problem is, I don't play any, and therefore they would be no use. That being said, my brother does, so I'm going to build him a guitar. Also, if I seem irritated, I got attacked by a plant. It's a well saw. For the styling of this instrument, I'm going to be styling it after an aria bass guitar. Purely because of the many bass guitars and guitars I've played over the years, the aria is the most comfortable to play. The curves are beautiful, and the instrument itself is a thing of beauty. There is one thing I don't like. The top hook bit is far too long. So in my design, I'm going to be shortening that up and hopefully making it a little bit less heavy. Which is important because I've decided to make this guitar out of jarrah. It's one of the hardest woods in the world, which should make it pretty hard wearing. But it also is very dense and therefore will have otherworldly sustain. I'm unfortunately unable to shape a large piece of jarrah like this. So I looked online and got a very reasonable quote of $654. And that was if I supplied the material. Fortunately, I found some guy on Facebook Marketplace willing to do it for only $25, which is a much better deal. While I wait for the body to be made and for me to receive it, I'm going to order a neck online, as I don't think I have the skills or tooling to build one very well. And for this particular project, I've chosen a vintage Stratocaster neck. Unfortunately, when it got here, the neck I ordered was in slightly worse condition than I would have liked. So I sanded it down till it was smooth and gave it a fresh coat of varnish so that it would feel just like the day it was made. It's been a couple of days and I've finally received the blank for the body from the CNC routing company. So without further ado, let's move on to making cutouts in it for all the components. The first one I'm going to be making, of course, is for the neck, as that determines the position of the other components. I began this process using a router with a 16mm bit on it to cut out the majority of the material. This way, when it comes to the finer details and I'm using a guide, I can use a finer bit and therefore be more precise. With the majority of the material removed, I used some quick setting temporary contact adhesive to attach a guide before using a 6mm router bit to finish up the finer details. Once I had finished the cutout, I test fitted the neck, and to my delight it was a near perfect fit. Unfortunately, I had made a small mistake with the router, which left me with 2 chips on either side of the hole. In order to fill these, I mixed up some filler using PVA glue and some of the leftover sawdust. I applied a small amount of this filler to each side of the hole, and then lined it with thin plastic before press fitting the neck into position. The reason for the plastic is so that I don't permanently glue the neck in position. After allowing that to dry, I took measurements off the neck cutout to know exactly where to position my bridge. I started by roughing out this cut using the router, before moving on to doing the finer details with a chisel. At this point, I discovered why jarrah is not a preferred choice to make a guitar out of, because it is impossible to chisel. It was actually insane to me just how difficult it was to do any kind of chiseling on this. However, in the end, I did successfully cut out a slot, and I was able to fit on my bridge. The bridge I've opted to use for this particular project is the bridge off a Fender Stratocaster. It's a very nice bridge and has a whammy bar. The problem is, I now need to cut out a massive hole in the back of the guitar body to fit all the springs. The cutout on the back is something that has to be very precise. So although I began roughing it out with the router, it was not long before I ended up using a chisel to refine the finer detail. After making that cutout, I installed the holder for the springs, which as far as I could tell, there was no information about how to do. So in the end, I just clamped my piece of work to the table and used as much force as I could on a screwdriver. And hey, it seemed to work. With that installed, I had to flip it over and screw in the bridge, which involved drilling lots of holes. In order to make sure these lined up perfectly, I used the bridge as a guide, and you can see there, it lines up perfectly with the line, and all the screws go in without much difficulty at all. With the bridge attached, it's time to make the cutouts for the pickups. In this particular design, I'm going to be using 3 pickups, and instead of making individual cutouts for each pickup, I'm going to make a large slot which I can put all 3 pickups in. I also need to make a cutout for all the knobs and dials which change the tone and volume. To make this cutout, I once again started with the router. However, unfortunately, not very long into this, I somehow managed to destroy my router bit, so I had to continue with a chisel, and once again cursed my previous self for choosing to use the hardest wood ever. With that done, I'm going to move on to the scratch plate, which I'm going to use to mount the pickups. In order to build this, I'm going to design it in 3D and then use my 3D printer to print it. The first step after I took my scratch plate off my 3D printer was to give it a quick sand to make sure there were no ridges or dips. With the nice smooth surface, I gave it 2 different colours of paint, one over the other. This allowed me to create a distressed effect by sanding some areas more than others. With the scratch plate complete, I fitted the pickups and pots in position before doing a whole load of soldering to make sure they were secure. With the electronics complete, I screwed the scratch plate in position, and with that, all that was left to do was add on the strings and a couple of final touches here and there. The guitar was done. Is I'm going to be giving it to him after he's got home from work at 9 PM. I got a surprise for you. Oh Christ, it's... There you go.
Nice.
Have a guitar.
Are you filming me?
I am filming you. I'm actually not, I'm filming the ceiling because I wasn't paying attention. Anyway, there you go. There's a guitar.
It does look sick.
Off camera, and the next day he was more excited, but it was also basically time for him to go to bed, so I don't blame him for being a little lethargic. Anyway, he played it, and here you go. Here's him playing it.
Happy with that?
Yeah. What do you think of the guitar?
Super cool. It actually feels super nice too.